Good morning, Dave.
Too bad I didn't start recording like 5 seconds earlier. Anyway, good morning. Sorry. Big week this week. Got a lot of stuff going on. I got my iPhone 13. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but what a phone. iOS 15 dropped.
Yeah.
Hockey season is here, which fills you and me with joy.
Hockey season is here. The Boston Bruins are back. I like it. Interesting thing this year, hockey had its own app, the NHL app, which gave you every game that wasn't blacked out. So basically every away game. Or if you liked a team like Boston, I could even watch the home games, and you could watch them on the feed from your local team. You could choose that feed. And
so
this
I could
year,
fire up Apple TV and just bring up the NHL.TV app or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And watch hockey, assuming I'd paid the $169 or whatever it is for the year. Got it.
And then you choose your feed, so you can choose an away feed or a home feed, your team's feed. So you hear your team's announcers, and obviously they talk more about your hockey team because they're, your team.
But you can do that, right? Because you are never in a blackout because you don't live in Boston. But
except every once in a while they have a nationally televised game, and then you can't watch it in that app. You watch it on NBC or ABC or whatever. Right. So this year they canceled that and went with ESPN. Now now ESPN Plus is doing, I don't know how many of the games. They say 1,000 plus, but is that still all the games? Some of the games are going to be on NHL Network, and you can't choose the feed anymore. It's whatever ESPN Plus decides that they're going to do with the feed. And I don't know. It's all very complicated right now. I was really freaking out the other day when I was trying to get on to watch a game. And I have Hulu, and Hulu doesn't carry the NHL Network. So I can't have that. I couldn't get my subscription to ESPN Plus working, and I was on the phone with them for an hour. It was just a crazy day trying to also that I could watch the Bruins. It finally all worked out, but we'll see how this goes.
I like the hockey talk, but this actually ties into me to Apple TV and Apple subscriptions, which I dealt with it completely coming from another direction. I did not connect the dots that you connected. I didn't realize hockey's now moved to ESPN Plus. I went the other way. We wanted to watch the Kraken. And people are like, what's a Kraken? The Kraken is the new hockey team in Seattle. The Seattle Kraken. Great name. I love it. I'm a fan just because of the name. And I wanted to watch the game. I wanted to see, is this team good? It's a brand new team. So usually brand new teams are terrible, except in hockey, they even things up by letting the brand new team cherry pick from other teams to build their roster, right? You know that. But I wanted to watch the Kraken, and I saw, it's on ESPN Plus. I didn't think about this was instead of. I just saw, it's a one-off thing that they're showing this. It's preseason hockey, so it's a preseason. So I wanted to get on. I already had a subscription to Disney Plus, and I paid for the year for. I have a monthly subscription through Apple of Hulu, but I didn't have any bundle. If I bundle Hulu and Disney Plus, they'll basically throw in ESPN Plus for free. In other words, the bundle price is it's a little bit more for ESPN Plus, but like $1 a month or something, which is fine for me. It's worth it to me to have this. And so I jumped through the hoops, but I thought, do I have to? And there's going to be some part of our audience is going to be a Disney Plus person or a Hulu person, and they're going to be curious about this. So that's why I'm sort of moving into the detail here. I have my Hulu subscription through Apple, through Apple's subscriptions, but Disney Plus I paid for a year. So it's a weird thing. How do I move up to a bundle? So what I did was I started down the road on the Disney Plus site. And if you're people at home, if you're in this situation, that's the place to start. Go to Disney Plus and then start down I want to do a bundle. And they do a nice job of explaining what to do. But basically, this really came up. I hit I'll do it. I'll get the bundle so I can have ESPN Plus. And they said, don't delete your Hulu subscription with Apple. Don't delete it. Because I thought, I'll just drop the Hulu thing and get a new Hulu with the bundle. They said, don't do it. So I didn't. And they figured out the billing. So Apple's still getting their $1 or $10 a month or whatever it is. Apple's nothing's changed. I still have that Hulu subscription, but I'm on the bundle with Disney and I have ESPN Plus. Isn't that weird? Isn't that a strange thing that they did? But it's interesting to me that somebody somewhere in a back room had this thought of, how are we going to make this work if we go to Apple and say, well, can we just have our money now? Can you just give up your ownership of this Hulu subscription so that we can have it and we can do our bundle? Because Apple would have said, go pound salt, right? That they wouldn't, we have this, we're not going to give it up. But they did. They somehow made it work. And I'm guessing that Apple still gets their dime because I still see Hulu on my subscription. Anyway, a small rabbit hole to go down, but it worked out. And I know you had trouble. You ultimately got your ESPN Plus, though?
Yeah, ultimately I did.
All right. So hockey is here. Sorry, people who are listening to the podcast. Please don't unsubscribe. We love you.
Yeah.
We'll try to keep it to a minimum, but we do love our hockey. And I know there are people who also love hockey who listen. So
Apple TV channels is a very interesting topic for a lot of people. And let me just say, yesterday, I was thinking about watching more soccer because now with some of these apps that I have, they have more soccer, ESPN Plus being one of them. But Paramount Plus also has a lot of soccer.
Absolutely.
So from all kinds of different leagues. So yesterday I went to the Paramount Plus Apple TV channel that I subscribed to, through Apple. And I realized there was no soccer on there. So I thought, wait, how do I can't download the app. I tried to download the app and sign in, and that wouldn't let me do that. But Paramount Plus, very smart, lets you authenticate so that you can download their separate app. You authenticate with Apple instead of a TV provider because Apple is the provider. So they allow you to sign in and authenticate your Apple TV subscription to Paramount Plus. Then you can download the app and watch all the live sports too. So
I love that. And I've been watching, I'm a Chelsea fan because my soccer friend is a big Chelsea fan. So I wanted a team to root for. So I said, all right, I'll root for your team. And that was last year and they had a great year. And so it was super fun. Yeah. And I've been watching all these Chelsea matches and learning a lot about soccer. It's a great sport. And I am enjoying it. And I'm happy. I do it all through the Apple TV. Every bit of it is through the Apple TV.
So one of the best pictures I think I saw from all the iPhone 13 pictures was your picture of a donut. Except it wasn't a donut. It was a Cheerio.
I mean, I gotta say that might have gotten the most views of anything I've ever posted in my entire life, in my entire Twitter universe life. It's at like 99,500 whatever units they call it. It's Twitter will tell you the activity of your tweet. It's amazing how many people have responded to this thing. And I basically took a Cheerio, put it on my windowsill, and then used the new iPhone. And, one of the great things about the new iPhone is that you can get within 2 millimeters, which is about an inch of anything and take a picture. And it really works. And there's tricks. There's, you want to really steady it if you're that close so that you get the best possible focus. But I basically it was the first picture I took with the new iPhone. I mean, if you haven't seen it, please do go and look for it, because I want to get pushed up over 100,000. I don't know what that means. It's meaningless, but it's this thing, this obsessive behavior I have with numbers. But that said, you might have to go back. I took it earlier in the week, but it's, if you just scroll through my media, you'll see it pretty quickly. It's a picture of, it looks like a donut, right? And it's super detailed, like a great picture of a donut, but it's a tiny little Cheerio, and the detail is astonishing. It's like, it's looking at a moon rock. It really is. It does look like a donut. Yeah. I mean, I love macro photography. I have a DSLR camera I specially bought a macro lens, and I love going out and taking pictures, but it's hard to do. It's hard to get an in-focus, detailed picture close up. A DSLR will take a better close-up picture because you can do more, you have more control, but out of the box with no experience on my new phone, taking a close-up picture. I've since taken a ton of close-up pictures.
I can only imagine.
And they're so good. The key is a lot of light. You want a lot of light. Try to avoid shadow. You know that thing where you're taking a picture with your phone and your phone is casting a shadow on what you're taking a picture of?
Yeah.
So, you want to work through that, get the light source away from you, coming at an angle so that you're not casting a shadow. You want a lot of light. The more light, the better. The more light, the more details will stand out. But you don't need I need to be a good photographer. There's none of that is required. It's just get close enough. You're looking through your camera, and then you start moving your camera closer and closer and closer, and there'll be this like flip where you'll move to the ultra wide lens, and then you see it happening. I like it. Some people have complained about it. Apple's going to add a setting to stop that flip from being so apparent, but I like knowing, okay, now I'm on the close-up lens, and then you close, and then, steady the camera so you get a very rock solid focus. Tap do that tap thing that you do to focus on something to make sure that it's focused on the Cheerio and not on the dead fly next to the Cheerio. Oh, I shouldn't have said that, but you know what I mean. And then, I do the trick with the, we use the volume button to fire off the thing instead of having a tap on the screen, which will shake the screen, but whatever. There's lots of tricks. Did you have the iPhone in something like a holder so that it was more steady? I did not. That was a handheld shot, and I do have my phone in a case, but that's not what you meant. So, but I was holding the case in my hand, and I think I was leaning my hand against the windowsill, so I had some support there. It wasn't just freestanding holding with a hand, because then you'd get everybody's got a little bit of a shake. Anyway, so we're sort of getting into our subject of the new iPhone. That is, to me, one of the great, if this is attractive to you, if you like being able to take close-up photography, that's a wonderful new thing. Every generation of iPhone brings something to the camera. There's night mode, and there's portrait mode, and they every year we get something that's selling it. They did not really sell the macro, that sort of how close you can get with the camera. They didn't sell it. They mentioned it, but I never felt like this is the reason to get it. But for me, it was a beautiful discovery. I knew about it, so I tried it. But
not only you, there's this story here about an ophthalmologist who's also using the iPhone 13 Pro to take close-up pics of eyes.
And I've taken that's one of the things I did was take pictures of other people's eyes with permission.
Not just people on the street?
No, not just walking up to people taking pictures of their eyes. But it's amazing the detail you get. All the, if you've ever seen a close-up of an eye, and we posted this, the ophthalmologist thing. So if you search for ophthalmologist on the Loop, you'll see you can jump to the link and then see the pictures, because they're worth looking at. But it's almost effortless to get a really good close-up shot with the iPhone. And if you think about it, the idea of this ophthalmologist using an iPhone out, with no extra equipment. Think about what they normally use to take pictures of eyes, right? This $100,000 piece of equipment. This is, it's. I think about I think about the Apple Watch and what are the health things the Apple Watch brings to the table? Just blood oxygen level and heart rate, measurement and all that stuff, right? I think about that stuff for the Apple Watch, and then this is to me belongs in that list because it's a health thing that you can do, and even if like. This ophthalmologist went to medical school, right? He studied all the things, so he can take a picture and look at it, and it means something to him that it wouldn't mean to me, right? But if you think about the idea of telemedicine, this is another step on the road to telemedicine being available to everybody. Because if you have your phone, this I'm making this up now, but this doctor could say. If you say, I'm having trouble seeing this thing or whatever, this doctor could say, here, you have an iPhone, 27, whatever the number is when this becomes a thing, give it to your significant other and have them take a picture of your eye and then text it to me. And then I'll be able to do some analysis and tell you, I think you got a problem, you got to come in or whatever. That sort of idea of, it's similar to when people, get a thing that says what's the thing that your heart rate is beating irregularly, that your Apple Watch can detect.
Arrhythmia?
Yeah, arrhythmia, but the Apple Watch has a term for it, but arrhythmia. But basically, it's saying your heart. Is it fibrillation?
Oh,
is it whatever it is, whatever the term is? But you get a thing from your Apple Watch saying, hey, you better go to the doctor. Your heart's not working properly. And the way I read it, following this topic, almost always you go in and it's like, yeah, no, you got a problem. But we can fix it. But good thing you came in, right? That's the kind of thing that's to me the biggest contribution that Apple is making to society is that. Some people could argue with me and say it's about there's other things that are contributing, whatever. But to me, telehealth, having good healthcare is incredibly important to all of us as humans. And I love this contribution, and I love that the macro thing that there's an ophthalmologist who's just, as a matter of course, taking pictures with this thing. And anyway, moving on. That's yet another topic.
So, in addition to the iPads and the iPhones, we also had the release of iOS 15 and iPad OS 15 on Monday.
Yeah.
The official release, even though people were getting it with their phones on Friday, the official release was on Monday. And lots of changes. I mentioned in my reviews of the iPad that the multitasking mechanics to get into multitasking and to use multitasking now are much better. I just love multitasking on iPad, and to be able to, there's a 3 dots at the top of the screen. If an app supports multitasking, you just tap that, pick, an overlay, pick side by side, wherever you want the app. If it's side by side, you tap on that. The one app disappears. You get to choose another app to put beside it. Just tap on that. Both apps open up. Perfect. It is.
I want to argue with you there.
Love it.
And we'll get into this a little bit more when we talk about iOS 15. But I find with iPad OS 15 and the Mac, even in Safari 15, forget about even if you're still running Big Sur. I guess everybody's running Big Sur. The Monterey has not been officially released yet. But if you look at the tabs in iPad OS, not in iOS, I love the tab implementation in iOS. I think it's magnificent, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But in iPad OS, if you think back to the way the tabs in browsers were first introduced, they were mimicking, it was a metaphor for file folders.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have a vertical file and you have these folders and you're digging through them and you can see which tab belongs to which folder. And if you think about the original metaphor and the way it was implemented for many, many years on every browser, the tab coloring, the background, not the text of the tab, but the tab background itself was the same as the window. So it looked like one, you know, let's say you had a tab that was one color. The tab and let's say you have your favorites. I'm in Mac OS now, so I'm looking at an older Safari, not the new Safari. So if you look at the way the tab is connected to the background of the title bar, it's all one color. It looks like one thing. So when you click on it, when it's the current thing, it's so obvious that it's the current tab. You look at all the other tabs, they're all a different color and they're all the same color and a background color. So the contrast is significant and it's very clear that the frontmost tab is that tab. Now in iPad OS, I am mystified. I constantly am tapping the wrong tab, thinking that's the front tab. I want to edit a thing or whatever. I feel like it's now these bubbles that they broke the tab metaphor. They broke that physical metaphor that worked really well. Part of it is we've been thinking this way for so long that we've built in this model in our brains, but it's also a physical model. The tabs work this way. In this case, the tab is connected to a folder and it's the same color as the folder, and it blocks all the other stuff. It so clearly does a good job of blocking the other tabs that you're not confused by what tab is the front tab. And with iPad OS, it's now these sort of, what would you call them? Circles, bubbles. Each tab is like a bubble and they're not connected to anything else. They're just freestanding and they use shading to tell you what the frontmost thing is, and there's the X in the frontmost one. Maybe it's going to take me time to get used to it thing, but I hate it. A lot of people do. So I didn't, maybe I don't use tabs as much as other people do. So I'm not as concerned with it. I mean, when I'm using multitasking, I mean, what you're talking about is different than what I was talking about. Absolutely.
So, when I'm using that, I usually have a writing window on one side and maybe Safari on the other as I'm doing research, but it's usually just one window. So yeah, I do know what you mean though. Now, interesting. Do you have your address bar on top or on bottom?
In iPad OS?
Or iOS?
Well, iOS is a different story. And I'm curious, since you say this, and I was thinking about this as we were getting into it, and I don't have my iPad in my hand, unfortunately, or I would check it right now. I mean, do you have your iPad handy?
No.
Okay. Well, we were really prepared for this podcast. I know that in iOS, you can have the address bar at the top, or you can have it at the bottom. And they call it, single tab mode is the one where it's at the top, and then multiple tabs or whatever the term they use has it at the bottom. I don't know if iPad OS will allow you to do that. And so that's a thing that I'm going to go after this podcast. I'm going to go and look at that and see if iPad OS, maybe if I can make it the same as iOS, I'm in. I love it this way. But iOS it's by its nature, it's not, the tabs have always been sort of stacked one behind the other, but you can only see one tab at a time, right? As opposed to iPad OS is more like the Mac, where you have a tab side by side, and you can have, if you have 7 tabs, you can see all 7 of the tab labels at the top. You can see them all. They may be too small to read, because you have too many of them. That's a thing, but that's fine. But with the iPhone, it's really designed for a single Safari web page at a time.
Right.
Right. And one of the beautiful things in iOS that I love is, especially if if you put your tab at the bottom, which I think is the better way to go, I like that design a lot. You see a tab, you see the address bar at the bottom, and there's the address in its little bubble or whatever. But you can look to the right and you can look to the left and you can see, oh, look, there's a page on the right. There's a page on the left, just the very edge of a little page.
Yeah.
The edge of another address bar on the right, the edge of another address bar on the left. And you can slide side to side, just step through your tabs. And it's fantastic. Not only that, do you want to say more about this? Because otherwise I'll jump to the mechanics stuff, which I do want to talk about.
I do want to say one thing. That did cause some confusion among some of my friends after they installed iOS 15. They couldn't figure out how to really navigate because the tab bar or the address bar was gone from the top. And while they knew it was there at the bottom, they couldn't quite figure it out. And these have been iPhone users for a long time, but it's just
couldn't they figure out though? Where did they get stuck? What was the
they just got stuck at how it worked. And it was very strange to see. But you get so used to something being on top and where it is, and you just tap on the address bar and there you go. And they were just befuddled on how this is going to work when it was at the bottom now.
Totally fair. And so I've tapped on the top when I had the address bar on the bottom. I've tapped at the top and been like, where is how come it's not coming up? And then I was, it's at the bottom.
So I took their phone, put the address bar back up top, gave the phone back to them, and they said, "Oh, well, there, yeah, that's how it's supposed to work, right there."
But that's okay because you got a choice, and
but they didn't. I don't even know if they would have been able to do that. So, but yeah, just caused some confusion.
So, just for folks at home, just on the off chance that you haven't played with these things, if you go to settings, then you got to scroll down like 4 sections to get to Safari. And then there's a section on the Safari page called tabs, which is, you got to scroll down to get to it, but it's capital letter tabs. Look for that. And then you'll see there's like a little model of the 2 ways to do it. That's just on my iPhone. And again, I don't have my iPad in front of me, so I can't check the settings on that. But I'm hoping that I'll go there and I'll say, oh, look, I can do the same thing on my iPad. But it's a different model. So I'm not that hopeful that I'll be able to do the same thing on iPad as I
right. Yeah.
So
I mean the iPad is more like a laptop now.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And I love that, especially with the Magic Keyboard. The iPad Pro, just amazing use. So.
Another thing, and again, this may be old man yelling at clouds kind of thing, right? But I noticed the 3 dots, what would you call it, multitasking dots?
Yeah.
But those 3 dots that allow you, and you tap on them, and then stuff happens, right? I find all the time with the address bar on the top on the iPad, I can't tell you the number of times I have intended to tap the address bar to go to a different site or whatever, and I've accidentally hit those dots. And it's because I don't tend to have the split screen. Like if as soon as I hit the split screen, well, now the address bar is on one side or the other side. They wouldn't collide. But with it, and I'm thinking this is in landscape mode. I think this is in landscape mode.
That's how I use my iPad the most, is landscape.
Yeah. So. That's fine. I will get used to that, but it just feels like they're so close. The 3 dots are so close to the address bar. And if the address bar bit I want to hit is in the middle of the screen from a left to right standpoint, if it's centered.
I don't think you deserve an iPad if you can't. The iPad police are just going to come and take it away from you.
And you're going to call them and you're going to tell them to.
All right. Let's take a minute and talk about our sponsor this week. It's Masterclass. Now, if there's one thing that I've always loved, it's learning. But if you're going to learn, you want to learn from the best. And Masterclass has the best. They have the top people in their fields from around the world teaching you about what they do. They have Yo-Yo Ma. They have a new one coming out with Metallica on being a band. They have James Cameron teaching filmmaking, Gordon Ramsay teaching cooking. And it is just incredible the number of people that they have teaching you how to do things the right way. Now, the great thing about Masterclass is that the lessons are broken out into individual video lessons so that they're about 10 minutes long, so you can explore at your own pace. You don't have to make a commitment to sit down for 2 hours to take a video course. They break it up for you. And a lot of the classes have downloadable materials. Like if you take a cooking course, you get recipes and things like that. There are hundreds of lessons from over 100 of today's top brilliant minds available to watch anytime, anywhere. iOS, Android, desktop, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and Roku. Now, with Masterclass, you can learn from the world's best minds. It doesn't get any better than that. I highly recommend you check it out. Get unlimited access to every Masterclass. And as a listener of the Dalrymple Report, you get 15% off an annual membership. Go to masterclass.com/Dalrymple. That's masterclass.com/Dalrymple for 15% off Masterclass. Thank you, Masterclass, for sponsoring the Dalrymple Report. Talk to me about some more mechanics in iOS 15 that you like.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, this is so fun to me. I love stuff like this. And this is an easy thing to try. So go in Safari and find a page with images. So if you go to Google search and type cat and then look, you'll see and then tap the images thing so that you're looking at images. And then again, this is on iPhone, so iOS 15, and I'm guessing also it works on iOS 15, iPadOS 15, but it's probably even simpler on iPadOS 15 to do this. But on iPhone, it's like a miracle to me. If you press and hold a cat picture with one finger, and then with another finger, tap another picture, and then it gets added to the stack. Like, when you were that thing when you learned how to select multiple apps in iOS back in the day. So you're pressing and holding a picture, and then you tap another one and you add it to the stack, and another one add it to the stack, and that's fine. You have a stack of 3. And then with that still selected, you say with your thumb, exit out of Safari. And then with another finger, you tap photos, let's say. And then you're still selected those pictures. You drag down and drop it onto photos. It'll add it to your photos library, all those pictures. That was a complicated explanation. I tweeted a video of this, and you can look for it, but it's not hard. If you just search for it, you'll find a video of people doing this because it's now become a pretty well-known mechanic. There's other ways to do this, a similar kind of thing. If you press and hold, another example is press and hold a picture, your cat picture, right? You press and hold it. So you've selected it. It'll be obvious in iOS 15. And then with your thumb, you see you're in Safari, so you see you could slide side to side to go to change pages, change to another page, and then drop the picture, and it's on that other page. It's the use case here is one of those. It comes up, and then you're like, oh, I wish I could do that. Oh, I can do this. It's one of those things, but it's good to know about it. Just good to be aware of it. I'm not saying you're going to do this all the time. It's certainly interesting, and that some person or some team at Apple in a back room somewhere thought of this, and I love that innovation. I love to see that kind of innovation because it shows that people are still thinking about ways to make iOS and iPadOS cool and do useful things and do interesting things.
It works really well. I just tried it. One thing when you Of course, when you tap and hold on a picture, it's going to come up with a menu at the bottom. Move it to the left or right, and then that menu will go away, and that allows you to tap other pictures. Just a little tip there.
Good call. Another camera thing, we missed this, and I'm looking at my notes, and I just want to mention another thing I love about the iPhone 13. Well, I'm on the iPhone 13 Pro, but I don't know if this is true with all of the iPhone models. But not only do you have the macro, that sort of 2 millimeter get really close to a thing, the zoom is now a 3x optical zoom and a 15x digital zoom. Now, I've always poo-pooed the digital zoom because it's just scaling up pixels. So, but an optical zoom is actually zooming in. You're getting a better. That's already great. But now there's something more with the digital zoom, and I can't really explain it. But when I digital zoom, I find I get a better picture than just scaling up pixels. So there's some smarts going on with the camera, but at the very least, I know that the 3x optical zoom is an actual, it's better glass taking this picture, and I think it's fantastic. People who are Samsung fans or whatever out there, first, why are you listening to us if you're Samsung fans? But there are plenty of cameras out there, both DSLR types, but smartphones that already have 3x zoom, and some have 10x zoom. There are cameras that have 10x zoom. So I'm not saying Apple has this brand new thing that's never been invented before. It's just I never had it in my hand and in my pocket before, and that's just great to me. I'm loving the experience, loving this phone. I got a case. I've never had a case other than the iPhone 4, which had the antenna gate thing, where they gave you a free case. That's the only case I've ever had on an iPhone. But then when I broke my iPad, I've suddenly become timid, and I got a case, and I love the case. It adds a little weight, but it's, I feel safe. I'm not so worried about dropping my phone. Anyway, the iPhone 13, great experience. I think I don't know if are we going to talk about the delivery date being pushed out? Is that on your list?
Yeah. I mean, delivery date's out, but the reasons are.
So, the iPhone 13 Pro, and really the Pro, the Pro Max, all the colors, all the sizes, as far as I've been able to tell. And I really did some digging on the Apple Store and tried to buy every kind of phone to see where the delivery dates were. They were all November. They were all pushed back. And we're recording this at the end of September. So it's more than a full month away, the delivery dates. And so
delivery, just to be clear, delivery dates to being pushed back can happen for a couple of reasons. One is that they can't build them fast enough because demand is so strong. But, you get all of that made up because the phones actually ship. One, and the other is that they just can't build them, for whatever reason, whether that's COVID or whether it's, parts or components.
So this was there's this thing called the Nikkei Asia. Nikkei Asia is like the Asian version of Reuters. They generate a lot of technical information, and then it's carried by different blogs or different newspapers or whatever, news sources, right? But Nikkei Asia did a thing where they sort of dug into what's happening to specifically the iPhone 13 Pro, but interestingly also the iPhone 13. So the iPhone 13, there are models that are a couple of weeks pushed out. Some are pushed out 3 weeks, but generally there's more availability with the 13 and the 13 mini than there is with the 13 Pro and the Pro Max. But regardless, here's an explanation of why there's this backlog. Again, Nikkei Asia. buyers of Apple's new iPhone 13 are facing longer than expected delivery times due to the COVID wave in Vietnam, where the phones are being manufactured, and the U.S. tech giant's deployment of a new camera feature. The disruption is mainly associated with constrained supplies of camera modules for the 4 iPhone 13 models because a significant number of its component parts are assembled in Vietnam. Okay, that's fine. But what I find interesting about that is, and I'll read just a little bit more. Apple has expanded the use of its new sensor shift optical image stabilization to all 4 iPhone models. Okay. Last in the iPhone 12, that was only the optical image stabilization was only in the Pro Max, right? But now they've shipped this new feature in all 4 models, so that's maybe not quite 4 times the demand for that component, but it's certainly more demand for that, a significant amount more demand for that component. Mm-hmm. So Apple made a decision to move this to all the iPhones, all the new iPhones, and COVID basically hit the supply chain with a hammer and said, no. And so it's sort of a perfect storm of that is causing this delay. It's more impacting the iPhone Pro, the iPhone 13 Pro. I don't know if demand is also, it may be that this is delaying everything. This optical image stabilization module is delaying everything, and demand for the Pro and the Pro Max are higher than demand for the Mini and the 13. I don't know. This is just educated guess here. I think it's all very interesting, but at the base of it that's interesting to me is that Apple has made this decision to give us all the 13 models this image stabilization, and I'm glad they did. I love it. But I have a phone, so if you haven't ordered one and you want one, I guess the best bet would be check your carriers. I mean, I'd get an order in immediately just so that at the very least, you can always cancel an order with Apple easily. But go to your carrier and check and see if they have the model that you want, because sometimes the carriers have better availability. Plus, they have that deal where you can get a much better trade-in. I think my trade-in for Apple was $450, and it was $1,000 with my carrier. I had an unlimited plan that helped, and I also had to commit to paying it off over 3 years. So, there's a commitment to the carrier for that long. So that may be a non-starter for some folks. But also, just if you have access to an Apple store, if there's one that's not terribly far from you, try just popping in there and just seeing, because sometimes they just have a phone and they're showing out of stock. They're showing not available for in-store pickup, but they have the phone. So worth checking that out too. What's next?
What about some shows that you're watching? I have to say before, I'm not going to say anything because I know that you're not at the episode yet, and maybe other people aren't, but I watched episode 9 of Ted Lasso, and it is quite possibly the worst episode of any TV show I have ever watched in my life. It is awful. Like, I just sat there looking at the TV saying, what the hell is going on?
Well, hang on a second.
This is terrible.
Hang on a second. Are you saying it's badly plotted? Like you thought the writing was bad, or
it
was
is
the acting
just
bad?
Awful.
What?
It is. I'm not going to tell you. You got to watch it for yourself. Episode 9.
Okay, but was it a plot point for you, or was it the writing, or the?
I'm not telling you.
Not telling you. You're just going to poo-poo it, and all right.
You can't even.
I want to remind folks at home that Jim said that he hated the new season of Ted Lasso because it looked like it was shot on a home movie camera.
Only that one episode did. Now it looks normal again.
I watched it. I watched that first episode. I kept you in mind. I said, Jim said I should hate this. And I couldn't see anything wrong with it. So I think there's something wrong with your brain. No,
you wait till you see episode 9 of Ted Lasso.
All right, fair enough.
It is awful.
I'm only on I just watched the Christmas episode. So is that 5?
I don't know.
And I got to say, I loved it, even though it's September, and I was watching a Christmas episode, and I know it dropped. It probably dropped in August. I don't know why they made this decision to have a Christmas episode of a show, but I loved the episode, and had all the charm that of a good Christmas episode of anything. I just thought, and maybe they knew they couldn't have a Christmas episode, so they just said, well, we want to have a Christmas episode, so we're going to do it, and we're going to make the year go by like in movies. There are movies where you're sitting there for 2 hours and years go by, and they focus on different seasons, and they just use, fake snow falling to make it be winter. And, you're at the beach and there's the sun, even though it's the middle of winter when they're shooting it, they make it look like summer, like that. I'm loving this new season. I was very skeptical about whether they could keep this up. I think the writing is strong. The characters are great. I'm loving where the characters are going. Especially Roy Kent, who is just
Roy Kent is the best, absolute best.
Yeah, he has really become a really prominent, maybe the most prominent character in the show. And the writing's great, and the acting is fantastic, and just everything. I have no complaints about this season at all. It's every bit as good as last season, except for episode 9, apparently.
Oh, you wait till you get to episode 9.
Well,
it's awful.
Well, I'll try to get there by next week so we can talk about it.
What about Jon Stewart? Started last night. I haven't watched it yet, but first episode.
I did watch it. I've been waiting for this for so long. I'm such a Jon Stewart fan. Back in the day, The Daily Show was. I just loved it. Before that, he was meaningless to me. He was a comic or whatever. But then The Daily Show came, and he found his sweet spot, which is political commentary combined with humor. He's sort of birthed a whole generation of other comics that do the same thing, including
John Oliver.
John Oliver is a great example.
Well, John Oliver worked with him on The Daily Show.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the late night guy on CBS, I can't remember his name, but anyway, yes, he also did work on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and has, he sort of took his commentary. He was sort of a fake conservative, and he did a great job. And so this sort of whole universe came from John Oliver, from Jon Stewart. The new show, I think it's got to find its legs. I think I love the Last Week Tonight with John Oliver.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's fantastic, but I think when it started, it was a little rough. It was, the writing staff hadn't gelled yet, and they weren't kind of finding their way, but it became one of my favorite shows. I think this is going to be similar. I see him, he hasn't lost a step, Jon Stewart. I think it's just building a relationship with his writing staff and finding out what bits work and what bits don't work, and how much people want to sit and hear him talk, how much people want to hear his guests talk. All of this stuff is going to work itself out.
Yeah.
But the set looks gorgeous. He's great. He hasn't lost his timing. He hasn't lost that ability to sort of do a little side eye at something, or pause, let the joke land, and then maybe smirk a little bit, or make a little a knowing glance at the audience. He's still got all of that. And that's a big part of what made me love his show. So I'm in. I'm enjoying what I'm seeing so far. Another show is it's a short, an animated short, is called Blush, and I don't know if you've seen the trailer yet, but it's a very interesting backstory. And it's a guy who worked at Disney Animation for 25 years, and then he was head of story on Big Hero 6. Do you remember that movie?
No.
Big Hero 6. Oh, it's good. It's a good animated film. Anyway, this is his sort of starting out point, but it's you have to watch the trailer, and I don't want to spoil anything, but if you read the backstory, it makes the trailer just so poignant. Basically, his wife died from breast cancer, And he loved his wife so much that this is like his homage to his love for his wife. And there's nothing in the trail, it's space. It takes place in space. You'd never think this had anything to do with someone. And like, the Pixar movie Up?
Mm-hmm.
There's that, at the beginning of Up, and I don't think I'm spoiling anything here because the movie's been out so long, but in the beginning of Up, there's this poignant sadness of what happens, and you feel this loss and lost love, right? And you feel like it was just tragic, the beginning of Up. And
what?
Okay.
It is?
Okay. All right. But maybe everybody knows this, but it's really, it hits you hard in the feels, right? Yep. This to me is the same thing, but only if you know the backstory. And I would read about this before going in, just read about the backstory of the thing, Blush. But it drops by the time this podcast hits, the Blush will have dropped. So I'm going to watch it. I hope it's as great as it looks like it could be. And it's a short, so it's, what is it, 15 minutes or 5 minutes, or, it's not going to be long, an easy watch. I'm definitely looking forward to that. Another thing, how about other things that you're watching?
Just one. We've been, a show called Line of Duty.
So good.
We're watching that right now, Eric and I, and it's it's a British cop show, but lots of intrigue, lots of surprises, just lots of everything. So
I believe it's one of the most popular shows on British TV.
I don't know, but I think it's on BritBox that we're watching it.
I think it's also on Hulu. I'd see it on Hulu, I think, but I think it's got 6 seasons, and I've watched them all. And
we're on season 5 right now, so that's a very good show. So I would recommend that you take a look at that one.
For music fans, for people who are interested in music, I have stumbled on this. It was a recommendation to me on Twitter, but I never heard of it before, but it's apparently been out for a very long time. But it's called Questlove Supreme. And Questlove is the head of the band The Roots, and he's on Jimmy Fallon, The Tonight Show. He's the band leader, but he's also done a ton of other stuff. He's very talented, very deep musical knowledge, really, really deep musical knowledge. And someone said, "Hey, Dave, watch this particular episode of Questlove Supreme. You'll love it." I'm a fan of Huey Lewis. I'm a fan of all kinds of music, but specifically, I love like Back to the Future, the songs from Back to the Future. But he's got a pretty big catalog, Huey Lewis, and Back to the Future. Got to go back in time. That song and it's The Power of Love. It was a big song from Back to the Future. So if you saw Back to the Future, these songs. You probably know Huey Lewis. He was popular enough. Most people know him. He's on the classic rock.
Love Huey Lewis. How can you not love Huey Lewis?
Well, if you listen to this episode of Questlove Supreme with Huey Lewis, it's not a new episode. It's just it's new to me. But if you listen to this episode, you're going to learn an unbelievable amount. And he's like it's unbelievable the amount of people that he was connected to, and the musical knowledge that'll drop. And it's fascinating, and it covers a great period of time. And here's just this tiny little bit. It's a spoiler, but who cares? It's 1 out of 1,000 pieces of information that drop in this episode. It's a long episode. I was fascinated by it. I listened to it twice all the way through because I loved it so much. But Elvis Costello, right? And people think Elvis Costello and the Attractions was the band, but when he did My Aim Is True, Allison, that song, his most famous song.
Mm-hmm.
When he did the album that was from, there was a backup band. This was before the Attractions became his touring band. There was this backup band, and it was Huey Lewis's band.
Huh.
They were the band on that album, which was a great album, and it's where Elvis Costello sort of became famous, was from this album. And Huey Lewis was a singer in this band, and they said, well, we don't need you. So he took like 2 weeks off and went around and toured around Europe, whatever it is that he did. And his band went, and he didn't know who Elvis Costello was. He wasn't famous yet. And so it was sort of that's just one tiny little moment in this interview, but there were so many of these. It was amazing. And then, there's stuff about him personally and how he's for most of his life, he's been deaf in one ear, and now he's deaf in both ears.
Yeah.
Like some amazing stuff. So that's a thing. A thing we skipped. I want to mention this real quick because I see we're already past time, but I want to mention, I've long listened to, since the beginning pretty much, to the show Dithering, the podcast Dithering, which is it's Gruber and Ben Thompson. John Gruber and Ben Thompson do this show. It's limited to 15 minutes. Each episode is 15 minutes. There was a big push to publicize this when it first came out, but it's been very quiet. Like, I hardly ever see people talking about it. But there was the last episode they did, they mentioned QR codes and how that's changed. And it has changed in iOS 15. When you go into a restaurant, think iOS 14, right? Think your olden days. When you go into a restaurant, these days, they always have a QR code, and you point your camera at it, and now you have the menu on your phone. Is that your experience as well?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it comes up in the form of a notification. So you point your camera at it, and then there's a notification. You take your phone, and it's a notification at the top of the screen, so you can stop with your camera. You just tap the thing, and it brings up the website. With iOS 15, and you can go and try this if you've got iOS 15 on a device, on your iPhone, say, point it at a QR code. You don't even need you don't need a menu at a restaurant. You can just bring up your Mac and put a QR code on the screen and then point your camera at it. It's jarring how much the QR codes have changed. There's it feels like they used ARKit, which is the augmented reality, framework that people who do augmented AR programming use. It feels like somebody said to the QR code team, use this instead of what you were using before. And it's jarring because it's sort of floating in the air. But if you move your phone, you lose it. If you tilt it a little bit, play around with it, you'll see it's jarringly different. Kudos to I don't know who brought it up in the first place, but kudos to Dithering. It's a really good podcast. I like the 15-minute limit. And there's this ticking clock, like 60 minutes. It's like tick, 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 tick.
Yep.
That says we only have 15 minutes, and we're gonna. I like the conceit there of 15 minutes, and you got two very, very smart individuals, Gruber and Ben Thompson, talking about stuff that I find very interesting. So that's it.
There
that's
you go.
It from me.
All right, Dave, it's great to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for letting me shoehorn all of these different topics in today, because there was a lot.
I will talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week, buddy. Bye.
All right. Bye.
You've been listening to the Dalrymple Report with your well-fed hosts, Jim Dalrymple and Dave Mark, bringing you their take on all things Apple with a sprinkling of science, hockey, and whatever crazy thing Dave's got going in his basement.